think I read too much. Hey, hi, hello, how are you? I'm Pia, and today we're talking about all of the books that I read during February. February is a short month. Like, let's just get that straight. Like, it is like 28 days. How did I read more books than January? I have read 19 books, or I have like 90 books to talk about, 1 or 2 DNFs, but like, odds aren't my freaking favorite. Obviously, because I have so many books to talk about, I just need to get on into it and stop this. Well, actually, I'm gonna have to keep doing this. But for a reason, for good reason. The first book that I read during the month of February is The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. This is her latest book, although she has another book coming out in April. I pre-ordered it. Guys, I pre-ordered it. I never pre-order things, and I did. Beth O'Leary generally writes kind of like women's fiction. I hate that title, but like fiction centering around women, mostly. This is dual perspectives. We have Addie and Dylan. Dual timelines. So we have when they're first meeting, they're on vacation in France, I want to say, and they kind of have this whirlwind romance. You have the present timeline where they've obviously fallen out, broken up, all that stuff, and something really bad happened. But they're forced together on a road trip, as the title would suggest. They're going to their mutual friends' wedding. There's a lot of heavy stuff in this. I mean, it's a Beth O'Leary, so she does not shy away from some heavy topics. So there is discussions of attempted sexual assault and victim blaming. Yeah, I really did enjoy this book. I thought that the connection between the two characters, like that romance, was really awesome, and I really liked kind of having 2 different timelines. I think that really solidified the growth of these 2 people, not just as like a relationship, but as characters. And I really did enjoy most of the side characters. There was one character who just like I have a headache thinking about him. He's just an ass for most of it. The way it was explained was just stupid. Anyway, I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I think this is really great. It's not my favorite Beth O'Leary, but I think that she just makes really solid books that are always talking about really interesting things, but are also have some like kind of like fun hijinks going on as well with this kind of road trip and things that come along with it. Alrighty, then I read Snot Girl Volume 2. I think it's called California Screaming. I read the first Snot Girl, I think, towards the end of last year, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars. This one I gave 3 stars. I obviously can't really tell you too much about this, but because it's a sequel, it is about this girl, Snot Girl, that's not her actual name, but for the sake of this, we'll call it that. And she's like a fashion blogger. She's in this world of fashion bloggers who are all really like fake bitches, and then there's some like crime stuff going on, and she like has a weird involvement in one of the kind of crimes, and some weird like shit is happening. It's very kooky crazy. First one was a lot more like surprising crazy stuff going on. This one wasn't, but I am interested to read the 3rd volume. I'm not sure if there's another one after that. Then I read The Mistwick School of Music Craft. This is the first book in the Mistwick series. Oh my gosh. To spoil the rest of my wrap up, I read the other books that are out as well. I love middle grade fantasy. I forget about it all the time because I've said this before, but I just was reading kind of the same things. I don't read enough middle grade fantasy. That is the moral of the story. This one was so fun. You guys know I just love anything to do with music. I just really do. Like, if there's music in a story, I'm not necessarily gonna love it, but I'm usually gonna be really excited about it. This is about our main character, Skiddly Bop, what's her name? Amelia Jones, whose mother was really good at music craft. Music craft is essentially like, you can play your instruments, you can play a song, you play whatever, but there are specific songs that you can play that are spells and they do certain things, and that is like the magic of this world. So she's trying to get into the Mistwick School, which is like this really prestigious school that her mom went to, and her mom's like had a mysterious kind of death, which she's trying to uncover the reason for, and also is kind of juggling a lot of things with this new school and the kind of politics there. And yeah, it's a really good time. It's really great. I highly recommend the audio books. You have Audible, they're Audible originals, and they have like a music score in the background as well, or like when they're playing spells they'll play music, which is so cool. I love it. So I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. I finally read this book. I don't know why it took me forever. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. I don't know, it did some things that I didn't like. I really loved the discussion that was going on with this book, but it didn't have enough like of a plot for me to be that invested in it. Like, I wasn't that excited about picking it up. I did like our 2 perspectives. This all starts with Amira taking the kids out of the house for this weird reason and then getting accused of kidnapping them. Obviously it was a really hard book to read, and the things that Amira was like constantly told what to do by literally everyone, and it was really hard for her. But I think my biggest, obviously like Alex was really annoying, but Amira wasn't like, she didn't have any sort of really agency. She did have an interesting character arc, but because she didn't have like the want to move things further, there was not enough going on in the plot for me. And I know that was her character, which made sense, but then there wasn't enough other things going on, and like the romance plot was like, didn't love that. Then I read Foul is Fair by Hannah Capin. This is a Macbeth, I love my roommates. This is a Macbeth retelling. This is like a direct retelling. This is not subtle at all. It's not like inspired, and this is basically following Lady Macbeth, if you were to think about it that way. It's about a girl named Elle, and her friends go for her like 16th birthday to this really big party, and Elle is drugged and sexually assaulted by boys at the party, and she vows to take revenge on these guys and kill them all, every single one. Just like go off queen. Like honestly, it's about her quest to do that, and it was crazy. Like it was, I mean, it's Macbeth. Like Macbeth is like such a crazy play and so like brutal, low-key. It was very interesting. A very interesting take on revenge and obviously sexual assault. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really fun. Obviously, you know, those things are heavy and hard to talk about, so tread with caution for those. Then I read Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I've been reading a lot of Rachel Lynn Solomon books recently because I've like just been giving all of them really good ratings. This one I liked. This wasn't my favorite by any means. I think I gave it about 3 stars. This is a YA contemporary romance, maybe just contemporary, set over 24 hours. And it's about our main character Rowan, who is kind of has had this rivalry going on with this guy in her grade called Neil, and they're always like like either the first best or second best at things, and now they're on like the last day of school, last day of senior year, and she is really going out for valedictorian, really hoping she'll get that. But she kind of discovers along the way that she maybe wasted her time in high school, and she kind of has to reevaluate things in her life and the things that she wants to do going forward, and how she spent so much time fighting this guy essentially. Wasn't sure if she got what she wanted to get out of high school and her high school experience. So yeah, there's also a romance, which, you know, I mean, I don't know if we say I love you like after this short amount of time, but you know, live your best life. The only thing I didn't, I mean, there were a couple things like that. Obviously it was like a romance is not gonna be fully developed in 24 hours. Like it's just not gonna happen. I'm a romantic, but it's not enough time. I mean, I did like their kind of banter, her and Neil. I liked the friendships in here, and it did give me like kind of major FOMO. I'm not gonna lie, I was class of 2020. I lost a lot of the senior year things that I was supposed to get, but this was like a lot of the things, and I just like lived them through this book. Remember the time we were supposed to have graduation? Anyway, one thing that's really silly in this book to me is that Rowan's whole thing is that she wants to be a writer. People know that, but they don't know that she just like loves romance novels. Like she just loves them. Like, okay, no shame. But she can't tell people. It's like her deepest, darkest fucking secret that she loves romance novels, that she's like a hoe for Tessa Dare. Like, I don't understand. And her parents are authors, and they write kind of Harry Potter kind of books, and she like doesn't think she can tell them. She doesn't think she can tell her friends, who are like her closest people in her life, because like a couple people have made comments about like jokes when she like read one book once. I'm sorry, lady's got issues. Anyway, then I have a DNF. I think this is my only one of the month. Put on the back. The book I DNF'd is The Breakfast Draft by Emily Whibreley and Austin Seachman Burka. I usually try to read books for about half of the way before I decide to DNF it. Like I'll suffer through half of it in order to get there. This one, no. Here's the thing with this author pairing. I read their debut book, I believe, and I was really excited about it, and I could not stand it. Could not stand it. But I always kind of like, I've seen people read them and like rate them okay, but when they were coming out with this adult book, I thought, okay, this is like a good time to give them a second chance. But no. The characters were like insufferable, and it just like was a downer. Like it was a real downer, and I was just like, I understand where the plot's gonna go. Like everything just seems like I get it, but it was not fun. It was very disappointing. It wasn't a good. Alrighty, then I read Call Us What We Carry by Amanda Gorman. This is her poetry collection. I love her. So this is her poetry collection. I don't read a lot of poetry. I'm gonna get that right the fuck out of there. I read 2 poetry collections this month. When I gave 5 stars, when I gave We Shall See. I gave 5 stars, like I said. Amanda Gorman, I mean, one, the audiobook is the way to go. I mean, she is such a performer, and I think that's one thing that's amazing about poetry is I always love just hearing it, if you can, you know. She has such a way with words. No, she just like talked about a lot of really like poignant and relatable things. A lot of it was about the pandemic and also going through the election year and things like that, and I feel like she discussed everything so beautifully and really just hit. Like it really hit. I'm pretty sure like I teared up a few times for some of these poems. And there are a couple poems that weren't like my favorite. I don't really love erasure poems as it's just a form of poetry. It's not my favorite. So I didn't really love those, but I just can't take away from the impact that this book had on me, and I just really, really loved it. She did it. She did that. Then I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown. I literally always mix up the titles of these books. I'm a genius. This is the third Brown Sisters book. I'm so sad these are over, but this one might have been my favorite. I did really like Chloe Brown. Danny Brown wasn't my favorite. This one's so fun. Eve Brown is such a relatable character. She is kind of just a big kid and she really hasn't grown up, and she kind of gets this like real kind of like reality check when her parents are like, we are not going to pay for everything forever. You gotta go find a job and like live your best life. Like we want you to do something independent, because she's trying out all these things and it's just not working out for her. So she ends up becoming a chef at this like B&B run by this snarky guy, and she ends up hitting him with her car actually. But the two have such an interesting relationship and such a great dynamic. You really see their relationship grow, obviously as a romance. The two really like lean on each other and they really appreciate each other's different kinds of values and characteristics and really bring out the best in each other. I feel like it just hit, you know? We had some little cameos from the other characters. I just love this universe. It is like a freaking cupcake. I love it. 4 to 5 stars. Great. Then I read Anne of the Island. Yes, I'm finally caught up on my readathon that I'm doing with myself. My read along. This is the third Anne of Green Gables book. This one is like Anne's years back at university, because she kind of like, I feel like I've said so many times that this like each book I read is a filler book, but then I'm like, what are we trying to get to? I mean, stuff happens, and then like the end is really important because like something finally happens and you're like, Jesus Christ, we took the whole book to do this. Okay. It's fine. Here are my full spoilery thoughts in my reading vlog. We read that. 5 stars, obviously. Then I read Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. This was for my reading like Marvel actors video. This follows 12 different characters. They are mostly Black and British women, but they're also people who identify as non-binary. There are lots of queer characters. There's so much diversity in this book, which is really, really awesome. So it's a bunch of short stories. They all kind of like are related to one another. Some of them are literally related, like this is my daughter and now we're following her for a second, or like this is my teacher and whatever. And then they all come together at the end and we kind of see them interact. I gave this 4 to 5 stars. The only thing I can say about this is like, I just think it had too many perspectives. I think each voice was very distinct, but there were so many that it was like too much. And not that we didn't get enough from each person. I think we really, the author did a really great job at like picking key moments in their life to focus on, and you really got a good sense of the character, but I feel like there were just so many that like when I think about it, like my brain is just going like this and I can't sort them out fully. But like I said, it's so diverse, it's so queer, so like commendable for those things. So much great representation, so many great stories. I mean, such hard things to read about. There's sex and abuse and violence and horrible things going on for women, but also like a lot of sex. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I just wish it wasn't like didn't follow so many people. So this is the second poetry collection I read this month, which is like really shocking because I never read poetry, but I read this again for that video. And this is Home Buddy by Ruby Court. I think I've only read Milk and Honey. I was gonna say Milk and Bones, and that is really not what it is. Just really don't gel with her style of poetry. It just feels very 7th grade to me. I just don't know how we haven't progressed further from 2015. The things that Ruby Kaur is saying, the messages that she's conveying are wonderful, are so important and like interesting, but I wish she wrote more like a creative nonfiction, a memoir, a book of shorts, like any sorts of those things, because I just think it would be so much more effective than like having this picture, this doodle of like a body like this. Like I don't think it's effective in what it's trying to convey because of the medium that she's chosen, but I don't think she's ever gonna change. I don't think she's ever gonna change from her notes app poetry. Like I don't ever think that's gonna change. So I just don't think she's my guy. She's not my gal. Then I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is the first book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. There's a movie. Apparently it's actually better than the book, so like let me know. This was so fun. It was like, it took me a second because it was going over my head and I was like, oh my god, science fiction, like my brain can't handle it, can't compute. But then like once I just let it be kind of like, it's almost like a Disney ride. It's almost like a ride at Disney where you're just like, if you're thinking about too much, then you're not really enjoying it, but if you just let it happen, then I think it's a good time. And that's my analogy for today. This was fun. We have 2 perspectives. I don't know if anyone knows what Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is about. The Earth is kapooting. This one guy gets plucked off the Earth for some particular reason, and then it's this other guy who is like plucked him and is like saving him only. And they have the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is like this book, which is like all the guides to like life, essentially, kind of. It's a short book, it's a series, there's like a lot of books. I just don't know like the point of each book. Like the first and second book probably could be combined. I haven't read the second book, but the first book is so short and like a lot happens that I'm like, could we just smush them together? I don't know. I just love that the meaning of life is 42. Then I read The Subtle Art to Not Give a Fuck by Mark Manson. This is a self-help book. Again, I never thought I would read a self-help book, but here we are, asking for self-help. Like I said, I don't know how much I can get out of a self-help book, but this one was kind of about choosing selectively what to give a fuck about, what to care about, and then not really paying too much mind to some other things. I mean, some things were, I don't know, a little outdated, I want to say. which is like kind of awkward. And I feel like the examples were just like, oh, these people's lives got like rear-ended and then they just had to literally figure out new values. They were like, I just don't know if I fully align with some of his points that he made, and I just don't think I really cared a lot about him as a person in this book. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. I don't know. Then I read Camp Cacophony. This is the prequel book. Prequel, novella, to the Miss Wick series. Very short, little tiny little baby one. Pretty sure it's only on Audible. Jones, before she goes to the Miss Wick school, she's going to this camp, so shady shit starts going down. One thing I loved about this book is she's like going to such a normal camp, and she's going to this sports camp, and it's like all these kids that are like so good at sports, but they feel so bad because they can't do music, and music is super important in this world. And it's just really interesting to see how we value different things in society, and like to have this different society and see that like, you know, these people, they feel really out of place if they're really good at sports but not at music craft, which is like crazy. Anyway, being the last kid picked for gym, I felt that. Similarly, I read the sequel, which is The Midnight Orchestra. This follows the events of the first book. I was very surprised that this wasn't like a year later, because that's kind of how middle grades tend to be. It's like first year, second year. But it's not. So a new kid comes into town and shakes things up. This one was a lot darker than the first book. I feel like actually it was kind of dark, but this one definitely I feel like was darker with the kind of tone. I can't say much more. Give it 4 stars. Give it 4 stars. Then I read Gideon Green in Black and White. This is Katie Henry's new book, which is coming out in May. This is about a kid named Gideon Green who was a kid detective. Now he's retired. Kind of gets roped in to helping his kind of like ex-best friend with not a project for the school paper, but like a story for the paper, and uses his detective skills to solve a crime. I love that Gideon Green is our main character. I think he has a lot of flaws. He has a ton of flaws, and I think that's such a great main character. I think it's so refreshing. I feel like I did like our side characters. I feel like they really added to this story. Mystery was fun. Like I was excited to learn more and like learn as the kids were learning. The kids that they're like 2 years older than me, as they were learning about it. The end kind of reveal was kind of predictable, and I don't generally like those types of resolutions. I like don't want to say, I just don't like organized crime. I don't like how that is involved, and I just don't care about it. That's why I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was really interesting though, and it was a good time. And of Wendy Poplars, this was the last book that I read. I read this in a day, one sitting. It definitely feels like a bridge book to me. I talked about that in my spoilery reading vlog, which is coming out eventually. I still gave it 5 stars. I still like, I love everything about this. Like I can say that like, oh my gosh, she tore my heart and soul. Lucy Maud tore my heart out of my body. She made me laugh. She made me cry. She did it all. That's why she gets 5 stars. Okay, I'm hopping in super quickly. I already filmed the video, but I forgot to mention, because Goodreads just sister screwed it up. I read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I did not like it as much as The Hate You Give. Unfortunately, I wasn't very into it. I don't know why. I am interested to think further. I am interested to watch the movie when it comes out, but it just wasn't my favorite. I did like it, but I liked its discussions. I liked the things that were happening, but I didn't love it. Those are all of the books that I read in February. Someone tell me to calm down. Let me know if you've read any of these books or what you read in February. Let me know how many books you read, because like honestly, I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I read too much. Anyways, that's all for this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to all the things, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.